지금부터 창의적 실용 교육, 스웨덴의 창의적 실용 교육 세션을 열도록 하겠습니다. 창의적 실용 교육 세션은 특별히 얼반 알린 스웨덴 국회의장님께서 기조 강연을 해주시겠습니다. 여러분, 얼반 알린 스웨덴 국회의장님을 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
저 얼반 알린 씨에 대한 소개는 현재 론드 대학 부총장이신 에바 위베아 씨가 소개해 주시겠습니다.
Hello, it is an honor for me to introduce the Speaker of the Swedish Parliament, Urban Ahlin. To understand what a speaker is means a speaker of the parliament is actually the chair of the parliament and the person who has only one above him, and that is the Swedish king. So the Swedish prime minister is under the speaker of the parliament, and he is also the one who induces elections, with whom new prime ministers actually also consult before a decision is made by the king of a new government. So we are very honored that we have Urban Ahlin here and that he will speak for us and for you about Swedish education, higher education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to stand here today before you and talk about two words that are crucial in shaping the future: innovation and creativity. We know that in order to leave a better world for our children, to create jobs with decent salaries and decent working conditions, and to develop workplaces where people can thrive, we need to do things differently. This is the essence of innovation. We also need to find new, smarter solutions that bring people together. And while we do that, also reducing our ecological footprint and new ways of organizing work. First, I would like to speak a little bit on innovation. Creating innovations requires that individuals and organizations can manage to move beyond business as usual. We need to create links between industries, academic institutions, and other various sectors of society. In short, innovation requires both collaboration and creativity. Sweden and South Korea are not alone in identifying innovation and creative society as the main drivers of competitiveness. Over the last 20 years, innovation strategies have been dramatically increased in research and development spending, have become an essential part of industrial policy in many countries. Countries that are seeking to increase growth and global competitiveness. As a result, global competition has increased, and the global knowledge and innovation landscape is changing rapidly. Innovation and knowledge creation are no longer the prerogative of wealthy or highly developed countries. And of course, this is a good thing. But even though competition for knowledge and talent is increasing, both Sweden and Korea are approaching it from a very strong position. In the 2014 European Commission Innovation Union Scoreboard, Korea was ranked as the overall top global innovator. Sweden consistently ranks among the top 5 in international innovation rankings, and we score highly when it comes to benchmarking of the most competitive economies. For instance, according to the Global Innovation Index, which is one of the most important indexes in the world for measuring innovation capabilities, Sweden is ranked number 3 of the most innovative countries in the world. What is the secret behind this success? A higher education system that succeeds in bringing out creative and innovative students is the key. But it is only part of the answer. A higher education system must thrive in a context. There is no definite analysis, but I will try to give you some explanations. One is strong institutional and stable macroeconomic situations. These conditions provide an important foundation for people and for companies and their willingness to invest in knowledge and in other areas. So, strong institutions and strong and stable macroeconomic conditions. 2, in Sweden we have a long history of equal and strong education for all. A well-educated population with access to good social and public services like healthcare and pensions are vital. 3, significant public investments in IT and knowledge infrastructure. 4, an open economy with well-functioning markets. Sweden is a country with a very small domestic market, but we have an extensive trade with others in the world around us. We have been open for international trade for a very, very long time. That has been the foundation for our economy, and it will be even more so in the future. 5, a combination of both government and industry investing significantly and consistently in research and development. Over the last 10 years, annual public spending has increased by almost 1 billion euros in Sweden. These increases have been adopted by Parliament, where I am the Speaker, without any extensive debate between the political parties. Why? Because there is a broad political consensus in Sweden on the need to invest in research and innovation. 6, there must also be a strong tradition of collaboration. One example of this is the well-developed and pragmatic cooperation. According to Triple Helix model, that is cooperation between the state, the business sector, and the universities. We have seen in Sweden a number of initiatives to increase collaborations between academia and industry and the state. When it comes between academia and industry, we have recently seen a lot of holding companies, incubators at universities, which support the creation of spin-off companies based on the university research. Many of these have actually attracted interest from South Korea. South Korean counterparts and incubators around Sweden have had the pleasure of welcoming a number of Korean delegations to Sweden over the last few years. Some challenges, though, still remain. Some of these we share with South Korea. One is the high dependence on a relatively small number of large multinational companies. Even if they grow in size and in strength, unfortunately, they do not necessarily create new jobs. In recent times, the small and the medium-sized companies have been the driving force for creating new jobs in Sweden. Improving the innovation capabilities among the small and the medium-sized companies is consequently high on the agendas both in Sweden and South Korea, but we still need to do more. Another challenge is a need to strengthen industry-university collaboration, particularly with regard to the small and the medium-sized companies. Even though we, in Sweden, have a long-standing tradition of close ties between academia and business, the full potential is far from fully exploited. There are a number of other challenges that we are currently tackling, including there is a lack of skilled labor, especially long-term. A need to strengthen Sweden's attractiveness for foreign research and development investments and in foreign talent. We do have certain weaknesses in our educational system, I have to admit. Our government is committed to further boosting Swedish innovation performance in order to meet the increasing global challenges. This year, the Prime Minister has launched the Innovation Council. With key actors, it is targeted for increasing innovation performances in all sectors. This council is key to a holistic approach to innovation. The council will push and support the government's focus on jobs and growth from the innovation perspective. Then, secondly, creativity. Creativity could be a lot of things. But given the fact that I have had the pleasure of traveling here with the Swedish delegation of top management from the best Swedish universities, it was a great pleasure for me the other day when I had a congratulatory remark with the 6 best universities in Sweden being here to, close bind with other universities here in South Korea. It is a great pleasure for me to lead such a delegation. Because of that, I would like to focus on the academic creativity. Sweden has a long-standing tradition in outstanding research, with the Nobel Prize as the crowning jewel, of course. But we do not just hand out prizes in the world. Swedish academic research is strong in a number of fields, including life sciences, material sciences, and ICT. For us to keep innovating, research is of course important, but education is also important. And excellent research and inspiring education often go hand in hand. I would say that skilled and well-trained students are the most important product from our universities. Let me describe by a few words how I see the higher education in Sweden. Swedish higher education is characterized by its relative lack of hierarchy. This is a reflection of the Swedish society as a whole and the Swedish egalitarian nature. In Swedish higher education, there is a strong focus on the individual, who is encouraged to think independently and critically, something that we believe is made much easier in an informal atmosphere. But even though there is a lot of focus on the individual, on his or her ability to grow, collaboration is also regarded as essential. We are very much an individual people looking for collective solutions. Group works helps to prepare students for the kind of teamwork that features in many of the most innovative companies in the world. All this helps to explain why Sweden spawns so many creative startups and why Swedish companies successfully compete in the global market and have done so for a very long time. It also helps to explain why Sweden regularly tops innovation and creativity indexes. In Sweden, young people are taught to be independent from an early age. They are encouraged to take responsibility and to participate in decision making. At universities, students are represented in all decision-making bodies. This perhaps helps to explain why Swedish organizations work the way they do. Employees are encouraged not only to do their assigned jobs, but also to see the company's bigger picture. Innovation is also quite closely connected to risk-taking. Here, society must allow for large risk-taking, but provide basic social security net that allows people and companies to take risks. In this, we might have to reconsider the idea that education takes place only at the beginning of a young person's life. Education and its institutions might need to be better adapted to society where lifelong learning takes place, and where education is seen as critical for the economic transformation every society goes through. The educators, they have to keep innovating themselves. International competition for students, researchers, and fund is increasing, which requires universities to act strategically, enhance their quality, be more innovative, as well as attractive for students, researchers, for funders, and organizations and companies. This is why universities now are trying out new educational tools, often using information technology to transform the teacher-student relationship and the student-student relationship. Massive open online courses is one of the examples. Korea's world-leading initiative to replace paper books with electronic books is another. In short, we believe that a higher education system that is relatively non-hierarchical and that encourages individuals to take responsibility helps to generate a more creative and innovative society. So what can be done within higher education to foster innovation and creativity among students? Well, today we will have the privilege of listening to a number of examples from experienced researchers and teachers from some of Sweden's most distinguished universities. The perspectives will vary from direct classroom experiences to the management level. I'm sure that this multitude of perspectives will underline that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to these complex challenges. But it will also prove that there is a deep commitment within our universities to develop education in ways that challenge our students and stimulate innovation and creativity. And I think our two countries, Sweden and Korea, have much to gain in continuing to strengthen our contacts and deepen our collaboration within this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Speaker Allen, for such wonderful insights. It's interesting that we began today speaking about the importance of moving from a fast follower economy to being an innovator. And now as we go on into this next panel, we'll have the opportunity to see tangible ways that companies can provide themselves access to the employees they'll need to do that. Up next, we have a panel of some incredible speakers who focused on ways in which higher education institutions can provide the training and the opportunities to create a seamless transition from education to innovating company. Up next, we'll have Peter Varbrand, Vice President and Professor at Linköping University, presenting to us on the ways in which we can develop business ideas at an early stage. Please join me in welcoming Professor Varbrand.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to focus my talk today on a very specific topic, or even a specific course at Linköping University. It's called, let's see if it works. Oh, there. It's called Demola, is the concept. And as you see, it's a co-creation platform for talent students, companies, and universities. But before I continue, I would like to put it in a little bit more general context. And I will start with also one slide about Linköping University. I don't know if you saw on the first slide that Linköping University is celebrating 40 years as a university this year. So we have grown pretty fast during these years. You can see the numbers there. And there are a number of characteristics that might be the reason why we have grown that fast. First of all, we have been innovative and entrepreneurial in the way we have built up our research and education. We have started new study programs, introduced new pedagogical methods, and we have even been innovative in the way we have organized the university. For instance, organized in themes rather in subjects in some cases. So we are, from the very beginning, you can say we have worked across disciplines and across faculty borders. We were also born out of the needs of the region. And that's something that we have kept, a dialogue with industry and society. So collaboration with the surrounding society is very important for us. And I would like to next give a sort of illustration how we look at collaboration. Collaboration is sometimes called third stream activities or third mission. But then it sounds that it's something besides education and research. And we prefer to look at it in this way, that collaboration is something that makes our teaching, education and research even more successful. And maybe you should write it in this way, since it's very important that research and education goes hand in hand. And then we have the collaboration with the surrounding society, and it's very important that there are mutual benefits, so that we can gain something as an academy, for instance, in terms of quality and relevance, and then we give values back to the society. For instance, in public education and culture, in improved welfare, in sustainable growth, etc., etc., starting new companies, more jobs, etc., etc. And breaking down that a little bit more and see what are the collaboration challenges with respect to education. I just wrote down some of them here. How can we meet society needs in our education? And how do we interact with the surrounding society? And the first part is quite tricky, actually, because society needs can change very quickly, and we can't, and we shouldn't, maybe. What collaboration activities strengthen quality and relevance? And what is quality in that perspective? That's a good question. What is the optimal balance between knowledge acquisition and skills training, which is, of course, problem depending on if you have, for instance, training a medical doctor, or if you have a study program in theoretical physics, maybe. And how do we train the students to become tomorrow's innovators and entrepreneurs, and not only employable? So now I continue with this very specific topic, Demola, which addresses some of these challenges, but is far from the only solution, as we heard in the beginning. It's just a minor component that we have done. It's one course where we try to address some of these aspects. So back here, and then I would like to say, it says companies here, and I will use the word companies, but it can be any organization. It can be a public organization, it can be a municipality, anyone who has a real case, actually, because that's the starting point, that you have to collect a number of real cases at the companies, at the municipalities. It can, for instance, be an invention at the company. It can be someone would like to have a more efficient process or a more efficient organization. It can actually be anything. But it should also be real in the sense that the company is really interesting to see the solution, would like to have a solution. And then so the students apply to these, and they tell which case they would like to work with. And then the Demola people, they set up multidisciplinary teams. And that is actually a crucial point, and one of the features, that the students come from different study programs, even from different faculties, to stimulate group dynamics, stimulate creativity. And I can also say that when they evaluate the course after it has finished, this is something that they highlight very, very high up, that they have been able to work with students from other faculties and other study programs. And then, of course, we have university staff who is a resource where students can go and get more knowledge. And then down here you have this sort of a very well-defined process, how you run this. And it takes approximately 4 months from the kickoff to the final pitch here. And we run this twice a year. And then you have very well organized meetings and workshops during this time, and you have these pitches where the students present their ideas for the companies and they progress. And then finally they have the final pitch, they present their solution. And when I say the solution, it's not always, of course, the final solution. It can be a conceptual model, it can be a prototype or something that clearly shows how you could go further and solve the problem. Another very important feature is the IPR. This is not relevant for all cases, but for some companies this is very important, because otherwise they will not give the very good cases to the students. So what we do here is that we really have a contract, and which they sign, which means that they give the IPR to the students, to the student group, and then the students work. And after the project is finished, the company can buy back either a license or the full IPR to the company again for a certain amount of money that is also set in the beginning before they start to work. They know how much they have to pay if they would like to get, and the money goes directly to the students. If the company doesn't buy back the solution, of course the students are free to continue and process that idea. So this is how we have implemented Demula at our university. So we have introduced a new course which is open for all students at 3 faculties: the engineering faculty, the faculty of health and sciences, and the faculty of art and sciences. And just to give you an idea, I think we have a little bit more than students from more than 20 programs today, study programs, and you can see some of them. The majority is from the engineering faculty, but you can see there are some red ones here from the Faculty of Art and Sciences, Business Administration, Cognitive Science, Psychology, etc. And even 2 programs from the Faculty of Health Sciences, Medicine and Nursing, which gives this kind of very interesting groups when you set them up. So experiences as Leo so far. The outcome is very promising. We can just look on the left side here. This was the first year that we started, 2013. You can see we had 16 projects and we had 67 students altogether, meaning that there are roughly 4 students per project. And as you can see, 10 of the 16 projects were bought back by the companies. And they were created 2 new companies out of these 16. In one case, it was the company together with the students who formed a new company. And in one case, it was the students. I'm not going to say so much about the organization. I can just say that we have 4 full-time employees. They are not really teachers. They are people who really search for good cases. They have to visit all the companies, all the organizations, which takes a lot of time. And to formulate the cases in a suitable way for this kind of project. And then they are very good at group dynamics and project management, so they can guide the students through the process also. But it takes some extra administration really to run this kind of concept. Companies and students are very satisfied. This is one voice from Ericsson. And you can see here that what he says that it's very important for them to meet young students also very early during the studies. And they can find new application because they see the world in a different way. And to be honest, companies very often, sometimes they are not even interested in the solution. They want to see the students and they want to recruit the students. And here you see the students, and Jonas here, he says pretty the same. Demola is like a long job interview. You get to show your skills and you get to know the people from real companies. That's basically, and Ini up here, she says, I discovered that I have an entrepreneurial spirit in myself, which is also very interesting. So Demola fosters the entrepreneurial spirit, you can say. And we can also show after 3 years that Demla students are more willing to start their own business. Even if it was not related to this course or this case, they are more willing to do that because they have an experience that they can continue. And then finally, student projects are not seldom the beginning of a close, are not seldom the beginning also, of course, of a close university business collaboration. Ending up a little bit, Demola is actually a global phenomenon, I would say. Demola was from the very beginning a European project. And the coordinator was Tampere University in Finland. And they were the first who implemented this idea. I think we were number 2 in Linköping who did that. But as you can see, this is really growing. And we have 6 nations included now, and a lot of universities actually. And here, this is actually my last slide, and you can see this is the targets for this year, 2015, that there should be around 60 universities involved in this during this year. 500 plus challenges, cases that one has formulated, and 2,000 students from Europe then. And this opened up new possibilities, and that is to form groups of students from different universities and even different countries. We had one pilot last year, which was quite interesting. It was the same case, but it was student groups from 4 different countries, 4 different universities who did the same case. And then they had the final meeting, and they all showed the kind of solutions for the company. And that was also a way to understand how our universities work and if there are similarities or differences. And I'm very glad to say that the group from Linköping University won that competition. So that was my final slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Following off of Vice President Bearbrand's exciting research with Demola, up next we have a professor from Lund University, Håkon Leffler. He'll be sharing with us in particular the work on the individual versus teamwork in the biomedical application. Please join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So, thanks for inviting me to this. I feel very honored and great to such a big audience. So, I am involved in teaching the biomedicine program at Lund University, and it's a very research-directed program. Most of the students become PhD students in the medical faculty or around the world. So, how do we nurture creativity in such a program? So that's what I will speak about. And so what is biomedicine? As a chairman of the National Evaluation Committee of this program, twice now I also got the honor to define what biomedicine means in Swedish education. And I say it has 2 designations. It's a profession to conduct research and development in this field, but it's also a cultural designation. One should remember that biomedical knowledge, or knowledge of how we function among other biological organisms, is a very important part of everyday life and culture. And the students that learn this, they will be the main carrier of this culture for forward generations. So we try and train that also. So nature is very complex, and so a conflict in education is all often how much detail and facts shall you learn and how much overview, and what role in creativity it has. And our goal is to teach both, because creativity in most cases happens because you associate known facts in novel ways. And if you don't have enough facts in your head, you are also less creative because you have less to associate with, simply. So that's, and so how do we, this is just a view of the big picture. This is a famous ski race in Sweden, Vasaloppet. But you can also look closer up in the detail. And you can go further down and look at the molecular level. But then we all have to put it back into the bigger picture. We are part of evolution. So we are up there, for example, and here's a worm, and here's a fly, and they are also our distant cousins, or so. And so the aim is to go around this circle from molecular scale, society, smaller society, cells, cell membranes, and around and try and connect it all. So how do we do this? And then while doing that, the goal is also to train the scientific method. And it's very simple, actually. So I tell the students, you always have to start with a question. You ask a question. Then you do an experiment, you get a result, and you analyze it, and you ask a new question, and around you go. And that's how you do science. The picture beside here is from Clay Art Museum in Gimhae outside Busan in Korea. It's very beautiful. It's a pile of brick with a ladder against it. And to me, the pile of brick symbolizes known knowledge. But then the ladder continues higher, and that's the fantasy, how you think into the future. So how do we do this then in practice? So here I give you a short, brief introduction to a course I've been designing and teaching for 15 years. And this slide shows a syllabus divided in 3 parts: knowledge, understanding, skills and abilities, and judgment and approach. And I won't read the details. And this is based on how all syllabi are written in Swedish education. So you have to have the knowledge fact, but you have to have the way to use them, and you have to have judgment, both in scientific, ethical, and societal. And that's the goal, to train all that. So how do I do this, or do this in a course? So we have a course over a semester which has weekly segment, and you can read the title here. Each week covers a relevant area. Of course not everything, because we can't cover, but you can see here we have cancer, gene therapy, stem cells, but we also have psychiatry, neuroscience, HIV. And so what does a week like that look like? So the course, a week consists of classical lecture, but then it has group works and oral presentations, and I tell you a little bit of this in a minute. And then other part of the course, the students are in research labs. They write research proposal, a very appreciated and useful exercise, and they have an exam. And so this is a typical weekly schedule. So here are some lecture times, and here are these PBL group works, and some more lecture, and the oral presentation in the end. And now the PBL is a classical learning strategy where the students in a group brainstorm around the topic and define their own study goal for next meeting. And this was initiated by McMaster in Canada and later Maastricht in Europe many, many years ago. During this course, we use a kind of version of the PBL where the goal is to teach the students scientific thinking rather than textbook knowledge. Oops, sorry, how do you back? So They read scientific papers from the original literature and some reviews. And each group of students has a different topic all around the main week topic, but different angle on it. And then they present it to each other every week, so they get a lot of oral presentation, which students don't get very much in other courses. And this course, by the way, is the 5th semester at the bachelor level. Yeah, so that was a little bit about the group work. And now the research proposal. It's actually a very good exercise for students because you look into the future. So it's an exercise of practicing your scientific thinking, this 4-step question, experiment, result analysis, because you have to imagine how if you have a question, how will you address it? And then it's also writing exercise because you need to practice to express your thought clearly. I tell the student they should invite the reader into their brain. They are often, unfortunately, tend to be a bit formal. They think they have expectations to fulfill, but they don't. And it's a schedule how you write a research. It's also very realistic because if they become scientists, that's what they will do the rest of their career, write research proposals. And even in companies, you write business plans. So the exam, I think I should comment on the exam, what the purpose of an exam is. Because here it highlights you want to build self-confidence in the students, but that stands in conflict with perceived expectations and the student-teacher relationship. Because many students want to answer exam questions by what they think the teacher wants. And I tell them, don't. Think yourself, be confident, trust what you think is interesting. And even if you are wrong on some answers, overall you will be more correct. And it actually works. And surprisingly, the students are very happy that I tell them that because they haven't really thought about it. And this also ties on to the student-teacher relationship. I think that's extremely important. That it's sort of a warm, nurturing relationship, and it's often a bit forgotten because it doesn't matter how good pedagogy you have, if that runs into a kind of everyday, unattached routine into it, it will fail. Even the best ambition of PBL, it can get, you need a heart in the education for it to work well. Yeah, so here is towards the end now. So how do you succeed in biomedicine? You should be a bit smart, fantasy, you should have passion, you have a lot of energy and tenacity, and luck, of course. You have to be a bit nerdy. Because biology is extremely complex, so you have to grotta ner sig, as you say in Swedish, you dig into a cave. And then you have to be playful. Fantasy is really a very important ingredient in creativity and innovation. And just being playful is, you should be a child all your life, essentially. And so that's what this picture symbolizes. And so scientific creativity then, finally. I find it, despite all efforts in Swedish education system, genuine scientific creativity is rather rare. It's only a few students per course that you feel, here it is. And why is it? So I think, so how should you deal with that? And I think it's hard to know. Some people have it, some don't. It doesn't run in families. It pops up anywhere. So the most important is to nurture it and don't stop it. And actually, as Urban said earlier, one key to a creative society is also that the society is somewhat egalitarian, because it's been shown by a learner from Harvard, for example, who studied very creative people, that a common denominator is actually a warm, supporting home environment. You need a certain amount of security to become really, to feel that you afford being really creative. So that's just people relaxing, and I end with that, I think. Yes, I think I don't show that one. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you have a seat? Thank you. Thank you, Professor Leffler, for sharing with us your insights on how you can bring rigor and creativity to the scientific inquiry process. As many business leaders know, this type of rigor and inquiry is important not just in the scientific branch of an organization, but at every level for any organization that's hoping to become an innovative leader. Luckily, to help us unpack that problem, up next, we have a professor from Linköping University. Please help me welcome Assistant Professor Stefan Holmlund, who will be talking with us about the importance of design thinking for learners young and old.
Thank you. If it's one thing I want you to think about when I'm talking, or when you're listening, or learning maybe, it's what I'm talking about has to do with whose knowledge is it actually that counts, and how can we make students build an attitude that opens up to everyone's knowledge. Okay? So I'll talk about basically a course which is in one of our engineering programs. But to do that, I need to explain a little bit about Nordic design. I'll give you some background on the course, and I'll show you 3 themes that we think is in this course that builds this attitude, and some final remarks. So lately we had a big transition when it comes to the concept of design. During the 20th century, everything that was designed was mostly products. And then in the end of the 20th century, we were starting to do interaction design. Nowadays, design is more of an attitude, a way of making sure that we can tackle wicked problems and really complex problems of the society that we have and we participate in. And this is just a cross-section of a really interesting book that I think you should read by Kamil Michlewski. It's called Design Attitude. I think that's one of the really important books if you want to understand how creativity and design works in organizations and for individuals. So the Nordic foundations of design. Well, it goes back to the 19th century, and there is a prominent, she's actually a school activist, Ellen K., but she was also a design activist. And she was talking about the importance of design, the designed object to fulfill a purpose. So meaningfulness is a really, really important concept in Nordic design. And if you look a little bit further, when we started to work with products in the 1950s or during the 20th century, suddenly we started to talk about value in use. And that's what Paulson and Paulson are doing. They're saying that the only way to understand the value of an artifact is to understand the relationship between the artifact and the one who is going to use it. And that's value in use. And throughout the Scandinavian and Nordic design history, we've been kind of, let's say, trapped in this kind of position. So when the Scandinavian design movement started to work with participation and cooperation, we started to do organizational games. This is from 1982 in a project run by K.E.Y, who is at Malmö Högskola right now. And it's one of the really important cooperative design projects that were run in the Nordic countries. It's the transformation of graphic works from photo setting to desktop publishing. The graphic workers realized that we will not be using these photo setting machines in the future. We will be working with computers, but we don't know anything about what that would be like. So they took on, with K.E.Y and a set of other researchers, to play out games on how will this work. And as you can see, they wanted to work with two screens, a set of tools on their desktop, on a digitizer board, a laser printer on their table. So basically what these graphic workers did was to invent desktop publishing, and that was not around at that time. So the course I will be talking about, it's for first-year engineering students. They're enrolled in a program called Design and Product Development. It's 70 students. They work in groups of 4 or 5 for approximately 10 weeks. It's running right now, so I'm here and skipping the teaching. And each group is given an age group that they will be working with. Some of them get 7 to 14 years old youngsters, and some groups get above 65. Each group is also given a societal challenge: increased movement, decreased waste, or increased togetherness. And so each group gets one age group and one of these challenges and a brief. And they get the same brief, every group. They are to engage their age group, they're going to engage the people playfully, to share what is meaningful and what gives them value. They should also playfully generate ideas together with these people on new solutions to some identified, more precise challenge or need that they have found out together with these age groups. They need to select and transform one of those ideas and transform it into a physical product. And I'll show you some sketches at the end. And this product, this concept they're doing, it has to be from the ideas that was generated by the age group that they were engaging. So the concepts that I think we're working with here that are really important to foster the attitude I was talking about in the beginning, it's reframing or framing, it's engagement, facilitation, reframing, facilitation, and engagement. And all those three are really, really important to build this attitude from the beginning. So engagement, what they are doing in the very first week, they need to design a kit like this to send to the people in the age group that they have already contacted. So they need to contact people within the age group and get hold of somewhere between 10 and 15 people. Design this kind of kit, it's called a design probe, and send it to them, and they have that for a week, and then they collect it, and they use that to start to understand what is valuable for this age group and what is important for them. And it can look like this when they start building it. There's a lot of creative work going on, and the creativity here, it's directed towards engaging the kids or the elderly in sharing knowledge about themselves. And that specific project, it ended up in these little things that they sent out, but it can be a lot of different things. We have kits where they send out cameras, they use SMS to ask questions, they have the kids to draw things, they have them to do a little bit of theater, and all different things that makes the kids want to participate and want to share their knowledge with our students. And of course also with the elderly. Then the kits might look a little bit different. The second thing is facilitation. And facilitation, it's one of those things that we need to learn to do, help others to do things that they might not think that they were able to do. And this is the same group I'm showing all the time. They were working with kids and movement. And what they do to be able to facilitate the next step, which is ID generation, is to analyze these design probes and try to figure out, are there patterns here? Are there very specific particularities that we can build on? Or are they everyone saying that we're just sitting by our computers? So both patterns and particularities, and they try to find that to build on to make sure that they can then create a generative workshop together with their age group. So they go out, in this case they're in a school and working with these kids, taking time out of their ordinary schedule, working with the kids for somewhere between 1 and 8 hours, depending on how how playful they make it and how engaged both the students and the kids are. And they make out all these, well, it's not just brainstorming. They use, on the bottom right there, it's a game they're playing to figure out new ideas. And on the top left, they're doing it's called brain sketching. So there's a lot of different techniques they're using to make these kids be really, really creative. And one of the funny things is that, especially when we work with kids, is that they have these crazy ideas. So it's not this year, but another year we had a student or a group of kids saying that, well, we want, because that group was working with movement, increased movement in kids on the schoolyard. And one of the problems that the kids had identified was that if you hurt yourself, it's really hard to get help, and you start crying and all these things. So they wanted Superman with a little thing hanging on his belt, so he could come out there and pick this thing from his belt and heal the kid. That was their main idea. And it's a crazy idea, of course. We can't make Superman. But this is also one of the things with fostering this attitude, that we need to not only take the words for granted, we need to listen to what the kids are saying. They're not saying that they want Superman. They're saying that they want someone that feels safe, that is quick and strong, and that has the equipment with them at once. So they're actually telling us how we should structure the schoolyard with teachers and what they should bring, and it shouldn't take a too long time, and if the teachers should feel trustworthy and so forth. So they're talking about Superman, but they're saying that they want something completely different. So we need to be able to listen beyond the words. And that's reframing. So we need to reframe what these persons are saying, so we actually can get to the bottom of it. And at the end of this course, they're trying to frame how does this play out in a product. And what is funny with this is that a lot of the ideas that comes out of these idea generation sessions, they're apps on phones or computer things. But we don't want them to do computerized things. We want them to do physical things that solves the problems that I found. And the reason for that is that they have to reframe. They have to think again. And this is elderly and movement. And they were given, most of the ideas were, SMS solutions and apps and stuff from the elderly. But then they found out that, they walk a lot, but they also need to sit down a lot. And they need certain kinds of movements to keep flexible. So let's sketch up this conceptual bench where you can both stand up and balance with the handle, but also sit down and twist and turn. And especially if this is at a playground where there are kids, this will make it even more interesting, of course, because then we'll also create some social engagement between elderly and kids. So the reaction to this one from the elderly was that, there will only be a lot of kids standing on those seats and twisting like this instead. But that's fine. Then we solved two problems at once: elderly moving and kids moving. The group I showed you, one of their sketches that had to do with one of the problems they found out was that the problem was that there are never enough equipment on the schoolyard. There are not enough footballs, there are not enough cricket clubs and so forth. So they invented this they wanted to do a hiring system, a hiring service of these things, but as they can't do systems or services, they have to do a product. They sketched out this little machine where you could you paid a bit with fake coins, and you turn the handle and you get a ball. So the concepts, they are really on a very low level, but they make it possible for the students to think across modalities, and they have to reframe both the problems and the ideas that comes out of the process. So, some final remarks on this attitude building. What we think that we're doing is that we're flipping the classroom, and that's one of these fun concepts or interesting concepts that I've been running around for some time now. But I think we're flipping it twice. And it has to do with whose knowledge is it that counts. The first flip is about that it's not only the knowledge of the teacher that counts, just as Håkon was talking about with the problem-based learning, for example, where the student's knowledge building is as important as the knowledge built by someone else. But we're also flipping the classroom in the sense that it's not only the creativity and the ideas of these engineers that are important, but also the people that are surrounding the university, and engaging them in getting these ideas on the table and in the conversations. That's the second flip. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Holmlund. Whereas the first three of our speakers talked about specific examples of how schools can work to integrate ideas like creativity, analytical rigor into their classrooms on a practical day-to-day basis, our last speaker offers us some insights as to how Sweden has thought about integrating these experiences. Please help me in welcoming Professor and Vice President of Stockholm University, Hans Adolfsson, as he explores the ways in which we have seen private and public interactions in Sweden.
Thank you very much, Mallory. It's a great pleasure to be here and to stand in front of you and to talk about a couple of examples that we have tried out in Stockholm, in the Stockholm region, not only from Stockholm University, but in collaborations with other universities in Stockholm. And the two projects or platforms that I will talk about is very much how we can create a connection in between the academic world and society in general, both from the public sector and when it comes to industry and so on. And the two projects that I will focus on today are Open Lab and Notice, which are specific projects in a sense, but being more general. So let's see if I can get this one to work. I guess this is the one. But before starting, then I would just like to tell you a little bit about Stockholm University, because I think that's also one of the things coming here to Seoul, to Korea, and having an audience which consists of quite a number of people from Korea, that you also get a chance to see a little bit about the universities that we represent. So Stockholm University was founded in 1878 as an alternative to the existing universities in Sweden at that time, being, I would say, non-traditional. So it actually started out as a private entrepreneurship, one could say, giving open lectures only. They didn't have any degrees whatsoever, no courses that were giving degrees. And we're still having these open lectures. And I think that's a very nice feature, but nowadays we also do degrees, of course. We have about 70,000 students in total, about 30,000 full-time equivalents, and you can see the numbers here on the board. We are about 5,500 employees at Stockholm University. 10% of them are professors, and then we have, of course, lecturers and so on. We have 4 faculties, I should say, or 2 different scientific areas. The 2 scientific areas being humanities and social sciences, including law, and science. So we don't have any medicinal thing, and we don't have the engineering faculty. These two branches, two faculties are taken care of by our sister universities, which are K.E.Y, or the Royal Institute of Technology, and Karolinska Institute. And we do a lot of collaborations with them. When it comes to research, Stockholm University is very much focused on fundamental research, which means that what about this innovation thing that we all talk about here, being creative and so on, doesn't that really come into the mix of society? Well, it certainly does. We also have a lot of collaborations, as you will see in a couple of minutes. We're also Sweden's largest university when it comes to research within the areas of science and humanities and social sciences. I'm very proud to be a chemist as well, to show you the fact that we have 4 Nobel laureates and they're all chemists. And I don't think I will become one of those on the list there, but well, you never know. So let's start talking about the 2 projects that I was focusing my lecture on today, Open Lab and Notice. And both of these projects are platforms that are intended to increase the interactions in between the public and private sector and the university. And when I say university, I mean teachers, researchers, and students. And I think these are all very important aspects to have with themselves. I think Peter pointed out something very important in the beginning, that in order to do or become a creative environment at the university level, we need to merge these things together. We need to merge education with research, and that's really how we're trying to do this as well. And especially in the first platform that I will talk about, the Open Lab, this is certainly the case. So let's jump into Open Lab. What is Open Lab all about? Well, if you look up on the web page, this is how they self-define themselves to be. It's a creative center that provides opportunities for finding solutions to challenges in society. And it's a cooperation with partners and other actors where it's supposed to create proposals for innovative solutions for the Stockholm region. So this is typically a Stockholm project, but it could very much be used wherever, I would say, because the fundamental problems that are tackled are all of a general basis. And another important thing as well is that the problems are tackled in a multidisciplinary way. So the people taking part of trying to come up with solutions to problems are across the lines between different disciplines and professions. As I mentioned, we do this as a collaborative initiative, and we have 4 universities going into this project together. It's Stockholm University, Karolinska Institute, the Royal Institute of Technology, or K.E.Y, as it says on the logo up there, and Södertörn University. These 4 universities in all represent about 100,000 students in the Stockholm region, and the equivalent of about 55,000 full-time equivalents. But we do this together with the City of Stockholm, we do this together with Stockholm County Council, and we do this together with Stockholm County Administrative Board. So it's a joint collaboration in between the public sector and the universities in this case. And what are the challenges that we're trying to come up with solutions for? Well, these are the typical, I would say, challenges that will come up in the Stockholm region, that has been identified to come up in the Stockholm region. But as you can see, these are global things that you could just as well be used anywhere. So the aging population, we know that we have a lot more people that will become older than 65 in the future, and these will have special medical needs. They will have, we need to provide systems for these people for them to have a better life in the future. We know that we need to take care of healthcare and medical services. There will be an increasing demand for healthcare and medical services, where we see altered disease landscapes, as it mentioned there, new treatment methods that we need to take into consideration, preventive care, for instance, as well as the expectations of patients and the population. We also need and want to create a sustainable urban development. And for instance, how do we make transport systems more accessible while minimizing the climate impact, of course, in the traffic sector? And as a growing city, how do we provide housing, and how do we provide this in an efficient way so that we can make a sustainable society out of this. So these are typical problems identified predominantly by the public sector in the Stockholm region, and they came to the academia and asked, how can we meet together to do something towards coming up with solutions to these? So what this open lab is all about, it used to be, I would say, an imaginary construction up till about a year ago, when they actually got a physical building. I show you that on one of the earlier slides there. A building where you have specific rooms, where you have specific laboratories, if you want to call them, where students and researchers can meet and tackle problems that comes in from the public sector, that comes in as real problems, that this is something that we would like to see a solution for. And we have heard things very similar from the two of the speakers previously, both both the Linköping presentations, I should say, actually highlighted these things. And at this open lab, we also gave a master course, which is open pretty much like in the Demola case for students from all different disciplines. So it really can be an interdisciplinary, I would say, collaboration around a common theme. So they meet, they identify, and they analyze the problems that comes in, and they try to come up with good solutions, or at least some ideas on how one could tackle these problems in the future. So I got an example, I should go back there. I got an example of a specific problem that was raised by the City of Stockholm, the Environmental Administration, and that was, how can we find more efficient solutions to transporting people, goods, and services in order to reduce the number of vehicles in or on city streets? That's a very complex problem, of course, but this is one of the ideas of a project that the students taking this master course will work with and trying to come up with a solution for. I won't go into any more specific details about how they actually tackled it, but this is sort of just to give you an idea on what this is all about. The other project that I would like to talk about is somewhat of a different nature. It's called Notice, or it's actually Science and Technology in Society. And this was a project running together with the Stockholm University and the Royal Institute of Technology, financed by the European Union. And in this project, starting out, we identified a couple of different challenges here as well, and that is the contact in between public and private employers and academia isn't always that good, and we need to strengthen that contact in a better sense. How can we get the students to be more, let's say, employability, even if that is perhaps not the perfect word to use, because employability means, I would say, to be employable means that you have some skills, and you also need to have just more than skills. You have to be a thinking person, and a person with freedom to actually develop your creativity and innovation as well. But how can we get students to be better matched together with the expectations from both the private sector and the public sector? So this was sort of the start of the project. And when we started that project, the problem was, of course, how should we focus? What should we focus on? Should we try to have this project focused to let students meet with the private sector, with companies, or with the public sector? No, we took a different turn. And the different turn is that this project was aimed as trying to get the teachers at the university to learn more about what was going outside the university walls, outside the campus. And why is that? Well, if someone is going to be able to influence students, it's of course the teacher, the professor that stands in front of the students, or that work together with the students, that the teacher, the professor should have some knowledge about what is expected of the student once they leave the university. So the project was really focused on trying to get teachers involved in becoming more, I would say, open, going out and interact with people from the surrounding society. And I think it's, I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that several university teachers have never been employed outside the university sector. And that is perhaps tragic because you lose or you lack some experience from what is going on outside. So that's another reason for focusing on university teachers in this context. So what kind of activities did we do within this Notice project? Well, we tried to set up a couple of different things that would increase the possibilities for university teachers, researchers, to interact with companies, to interact with the public sector. And what is the closest thing that comes to mind when you're trying to at least establish a contact? That is, of course, to look for the alumni. So we had a lot of interactions with Stockholm University and K.E.Y alumni to come to campus to do some kind of speed networking together with teachers and researchers, where they sat down in small groups, interacted heavily for a couple of minutes, and then turned around, going around very much like a speed dating program. That was one of the activities we were doing. We organized workshops. We did a lot of mentorship programs. We had lunch seminars, and we'd also tried to have short internships where university teachers had a chance to go out into a company and to work for a week or two just in order to see what is it going out, working there, what is this all about. So in all, we had about 750 teachers and researchers taking part of about 80 different activities that we were running within this program that lasted for 2 years. So the expected outcomes of the program was, of course, that we should have a knowledge transfer from the university teachers down to the students once they had participated in these activities and get this know-how. And that could be done by a number of different ways. For instance, by develop and change curriculum of the classes taught. We could have more guest lectures coming in, and then I would say not just any guest lecturer, a relevant guest lecturer that would enhance the class taught by the specific teachers. And also, an increased teacher network would, of course, be useful for the students, because with an increased teacher network, we would have a chance for the students to then go out for internships and get a contact with people in industry or in the public sector outside university. So that was what we hoped for. What did we learn then? I would say that I went to a certain point rather disappointed, because university teachers are very much like this. They are researchers, they're extremely focused on their research projects, really much focused on what they think is the highest priority, and that is to do the research. So it was rather difficult to reach teachers, even if we had 750 people involved in that. That also included a number of graduate students that were part of this project. We also saw some culture issues within this, because if you say that you want to have input from society to change the curriculum or change the way we're supposed to organize our education, then you could say that, should we really let society put that demand on us for making sort of special education for the needs of the moment? I would personally say no, just because of the fact that what is the best thing that we can provide our students with? Well, that's a platform for them to develop further on later on, not to just listen to what is the need at the moment. We need to have a much more long-term, sustainable thinking in doing that. So that's sort of a cultural issue as well. But another thing that came out, which is really positive, and that is that we know that our students now, they have, apart from their excellent expertise in the subjects that they are studying, they have a number of generic competences that they are perhaps not aware of. And that's something that we should try to tell them and sell to them and say, hey, you know this, you know how to present things, you know how to write a report, you know how to run a project. And they have done that over and over and over during the education. And that's something which is very useful once you leave the university as well. Well, it's very useful if you stay at the university, of course, but once you leave the university, that will be the competences used outside as well. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I presented to you 2 different platform projects that we have used in the Stockholm region to try to increase the knowledge and transfer of ideas from the society into the university and from the university out to the society and meet the challenges of the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have all 4 of our panelists join us up here on the stage. We'll have time for 3 questions. So once they join us up, we'll be taking the first of those 3. All right, it looks like we're now ready to open for questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the insightful conversation. I think one of the common threads that ties this session together, I think, is the recognition that multidisciplinary education is crucial to fostering creativity and innovative thinking. So if diversity of ideas, disciplines, and backgrounds is crucial to creativity, what do you think is the role of humanities and social sciences in fostering this kind of research and technology and whatnot? And for example, in the case of the Stockholm University, where the vast majority of the students are actually from the humanities and social sciences, I'm wondering how these students are being integrated into the research sectors, and whether you think that this kind of integration is beneficial for innovation in technology and in business. Thank you.
Let me say, I think it's particularly interesting and particularly good for students from humanities and social sciences to be involved in a project like this, because most often these students, they don't think of themselves as being students that are needed in such a sense within society. But the problems that I showed them that we're facing in the Stockholm region and that we're facing world around, they are problems that very much need the knowledge of students and people with skills in humanity and in social sciences.
Anyone else like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, there is no innovation without the human and social sciences. We can't have products without, for example, giving them form. And giving them form is the same as relating to the human psychology, human understanding, and human reasoning. And products are always used in a space and in a context and in collaboration. So then we need to know, I mean, and these are really basic level kind of humanistic and social sciences things that goes into every innovation that ever has been created. Until that's in place, there's only inventions. And that's really important. So actually the most important part of innovations are the humanistic and social science perspectives, because that's what turns them from inventions to innovations.
Beautiful. Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks for all your insights. I'm an entrepreneurship major at Babson College, currently running an education program here in Korea, working with middle school and high schools in Seoul, where students can basically identify problems within their school communities and try to come up with their own product, service, or campaigns in order to solve them on their own. But the problem that I mainly face with a lot of teachers and students even in Seoul is that when you try to separate this educational method between the academic aspect and also the project-based learning, whereas I'm obviously focused on the project-based learning, students often get confused how to manage their time. You know, like I used to study 10 hours a day, but then now I'm working on this problem-solving thing, and now I'm studying less, and my mom's here trying to, you know, tell me you need to study more and whatnot. So I'm more likely interested in how high school and middle school students, like what they should be focused more. So in your opinion, how do you really balance that sort of conflict in the universal level? And in your opinion, how should those middle school and high school students focus more, I guess? Should they study more in terms of gaining knowledge and hard facts and whatnot, and then work on those real problems when they enter colleges?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think it's important to have a transparent system. So if we would like to train students in both knowledge acquisition and skills training, I think it's very good if they do that also in the elementary school and high school. And that's basically one feature that I think we have in Sweden, that students are trained very early in this independent way to search for solutions. And I think that it's important to start pretty early. But it's, as you said, it's always a balance. That was one of my questions. It's not that easy to find that balance. And it's probably not the same for if you come to university. The balance can differ from study program to study program, depending on the content and the focus, the features of the specific study program. Yeah.
Well, I think, is it on? Yeah. Actually, it's a good question, and Sweden and Korea illustrates two opposites. I think probably in Korea, the student in middle school study too much facts, too much cramming, and too much goal of sort of achieving expected knowledge, what they think the teacher wants. So they would probably benefit doing less of that and more of project and play and fantasy. On the other hand, in Sweden, the tendency has been very strong that the student shall have independent and projects very early, which is very good. It's actually the old Montessori pedagogy, which I myself is a product of, but it tend to have been a little bit too much, perhaps, because the Swedish students entering university have big gaps in basic knowledge when they come in. So you always need both. Not too much of one. You need some fact learning, but then you need to have time to use these facts to connect them and do fun things with them.
Wonderful. Next question.
Can I add?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
And I'll give you an example from my own family. In Sweden we have these. We meet the teacher, or they call mentors. So my children, they have one mentor each, and every semester you meet the mentor and your child, and the kid is telling you how, in this case her learning has gone that semester. When I was a kid, not so very long ago maybe, but 20 years ago maybe, we were having what was called 15-minute talks. And then it was my parents and me and the teacher. And the teacher was talking very seriously with my parents about how my learning was going. Okay, so you can see a shift where we go from one model where it's kind of, there is this power structure thing happening, to a model where the kid is owning her own learning. And I was kind of disappointed because they don't get any homework. So my youngest, she doesn't get any homework, and she's in 8th grade. Because they spend time in school learning, and when they get home, of course, there's a little bit of, learning English words and stuff like that, but not like learning all the rivers in Russia, or the economic factors that drove the Second World War, or all these, or the kings of Sweden. Nothing like that. And I was kind of disappointed because I had been looking forward to learning the longest rivers in Russia, because when I was a kid we had Soviet Union, so there are a lot of things I don't know, and I wanted that to happen. So the teacher, when I said that, the teacher said, well, kids today in Sweden, they focus on abilities. They should develop analytic ability. They should develop creative ability, and there's three more. I think there are five big abilities, and that's what school is there for. But that is, of course, nothing if you don't have the facts also. So it ties into this, and it's a very concrete example. So what we should do as parents with our kids is to make sure that they get more challenges with training their analytic abilities if that's what they need or if that's what they want, or their creative abilities if that's what they want. Building Lego or reading books or writing, planning our trip to wherever we want to go the next time. So it's very, there has been a big shift just in 20 years.
Would you like to add anything?
No, I think
Okay,
it's good.
great. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thanks. So my name is Sam. I'm coming from Sense and Sustainability at Harvard University. And I'm interested in this demo program because we're trying to bring together academia, universities, and the private sector to foster innovation in students, or sort of the innovative mindset. And I'm not sure, but what the sense I got from your presentation, Professor Varbrand, was that Demela is maybe a third party that's sort of interacting with universities and private sector in many different cities. And I guess I'm wondering, is that the way to do this, given we've heard testimony, and also we can imagine that the comparative advantage or the sort of incentives for universities and for private sector are not the same?
Well, actually, I think it differs from country to country how that is organized. As it is in Linköping, we have had a separate organization for that, for the first pilot phase. But we will now drag it into the academia, so we will take care of that as well. Of course, the course is within the university. We still have an examiner that checks the skills and everything like that. But we have had the Demela team of people working with the companies and things to collect the cases. That has been a separate organization up to now. But after the pilot now, and we will go into more sharp, we will definitely take that into our academia so that we can have a complete solution how we run this. So you can say it's still under development, at least for us. But we believe it's quite a good concept. And but it has to be continued, and we have to continue and develop it. And try to find the best way to do all these things. So, yeah.
Great. It looks like we actually have time for one or two more questions. So if there are any other questions to be asked. Well, now that we have that crystal clarity, please thank you one more time to our excellent panel. Ladies and gentlemen.